The play is memory. Being a memory play, it is sentimental. It is not realistic. In memory, everything seems to happen to music.
The words of Columbus native and Pulitzer Prize winner Tennessee Williams depict the sound of the music in the wings as well as the sound of the gently flowing river and the breeze through the trees in this Theater of Memorials.
Welcome to the 28th annual Tales from the Crypt, sponsored by the students of the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science.
I'm a junior at MSMS, and I would like to share some information with you before you begin your tour.
Consider the land you will be strolling tonight. The tombstone you see mark mountains of information revealing the people who wove the history of Columbus.
Though they may no longer speak, their life stories and impact have been resurrected to resonate throughout the cemetery.
Tonight you have an opportunity to connect with these characters from the 19th and 20th century as they share their contributions and stories.
They rest and you stand on the historical plot of Friendship Cemetery, which was founded by the Independent Order of Oddfellows on May 30th, 1849, on this 5-acre plot.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave, and o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Where'd you come from? You done started me while I was practicing my music. Oh, I love it more than fame or fortune. Oh yes, music. That fine thing makes you laugh and cry and sing, and if I dare say in this Christian place, dance. Something else I can do real well. That's tell a story. A tale of loves and pains far greater than we could just use words for. Turns out, I wrote a song myself about a man named John F. Williams, doctor here in Columbus. Sadly, he died at Fort Donelson in 1862. Well, would you like to hear the song? I think that's a yes I hear. Well, here goes. There once was a doctor who grew up just right here. I'll tell you of John Williams, for this you have to hear. He was born up in Chicago in 1838. He lived here as a teen, and the war would be his fate. Grew up with Cornelia, she was 6 years old, and he raised by sweet Eliza, an Alabama lady. His daddy, Isaac Williams, was a merchant born in Maine, so he taught John well, made him excel. Education was John's game. At the mere age of 7, John met a famous man. This man named Dr. Lipscomb, for senator he ran. Before him there were many doctors that progressed, from Fort 2K to Baker to Spillman and the rest. How could John not want to be them, follow in their shoes, to save some lives and wear that coat, fulfill his own dues? The Civil War came rather quickly, but John knew what to do. He said, I'll be a surgeon, maybe save a soldier or two. When he joined the old Confederates, they said you cannot be a doctor or a surgeon, you'll lead some infantry. Though he did not want to be this, John swallowed up his pride. Defending Fort Donelson, he was the first who died. On that February day in 1862, her dad had lost his son, a brother taken to. A tragedy for Williams, a doctor, not a fighter, who died before he could complete his one desire. So guys and gals, did you like the little tune? No, not much for changing chords, but I say it's got some mighty fine lyrics talking about that doctor and all. A man who wanted to save the sick, but died in a position fighting his brothers. In the end, he had no chance to heal the wounded. He died protecting a land that kept him from saving people. Never mind that. Come by sometime and hear another one of my tales. Maybe it'll be a little less sad. But till then, I best get back to practicing my craft.
Friendship Cemetery was originally designed to evoke the three interlocking links of a chain, representing friendship, love, and truth. Each performance you see tonight will reflect some aspect of those values.
Mr. Keeler isn't in right now. He should be at the auction, or at the family shop, or was it the new building he bought off North Main? I don't quite remember where he said it'd be. He's all over the place nowadays, always working on the next edition of the Keeler's Almanac. Yeah, that's right, the Keeler's Almanac. He's been working on it since 1845, which, might I say, is 15 years. He's always in town talking with the people on what to put on next week's paper, as well as helping these smaller businesses out by placing their advertisements in it as well. Everyone in Columbus loves him. Who wouldn't? He's so admirable and kind, generous, handsome, and not to mention rich. He's the type of man you wish your son became or your daughter was married to. But you won't ever find a man like him because he's one of a kind, and he's mine. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Eliza Keeler, his wife. Now, if you've been around Columbus for a while, you must know I'm Oscar's second wife. But that fact doesn't matter since that wench, Amanda? Oh, I mean, my sister is dead, so I'm basically the only wife who matters now. And it didn't take my dear Oscar long to get over her death because he and I were already madly in love with each other, which is why we got married less than 1 year after her death on May 9th, 1850. And I'm sure y'all are asking yourselves, why am I so bitter towards my sweet, younger sister Amanda? Well, I'll tell you, I was supposed to marry Oscar until that she-devil, the one laying right over there, ran to Papa, sobbing her eyes out about how she couldn't live without him, when Lord knows all she wanted was his money. And Oscar couldn't say no, because his reputation was on the line. What would people say when they find out Oscar T. Keeler, a love affair with Amanda's own sister? But luckily, true love always finds its way. Amanda couldn't have a child, and the disease in her womb finally killed her on August 23rd, 1849. Well, I'll tell you this. Oscar was so happy when she was gone. She couldn't even give him one child. I gave him 6. But enough about her and more about me. I love my family. I love my husband and my children. But this stressful routine is just unbearable. I wake up, get the children ready for school, and when Oscar leaves to go to work, I stay behind and start the chores. Washing the dishes, dusting the fireplace, folding the clothes, making the bed, sweeping the floors, cleaning the sheets. And by the time I'm done, and I'm tired, and I'm exhausted, and I don't want to work anymore, Oscar and the children come home, and I start on dinner. I do admit, it is a rather boring lifestyle, and like some of these other women here, I do wonder what it'd be like if we had more options of what to do with our lives. But honestly, I probably wouldn't change a thing. I love my life. My husband's perfect, my children are perfect, I'm perfect. What more can I ask for? To vote? Yeah, right. I have to clean these sheets again. You guys should get going. I have much work to do. If you still want to see Oscar, try again tomorrow.
The first burial to take place in Friendship was that of Mary Elizabeth Bell Sinclair, the young wife of Alexander Sinclair. She died in childbirth on July 16, 1849, at the age of 18.
Greetings. Pleased me you sat on to this humble little office. Now, what seems to be the problem? There's nothing wrong with you. Well, you do know you've just stumbled into the office of Dr. John H. Hand? Oh, who's Dr. John H. Hand, you ask? Well, that would be me. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Of course, I suppose it's perfectly normal for you not to know who I am, seeing as I've been dead for over a century. But you must be familiar with the celebrated Dr. Nathan Smith. The smartest man that's ever graced this planet? A pioneer of the ages. The deepest thinker in any room in which he was placed? Oh yes, he's quite the man, and I was his protege. Now back when I studied at Yale College in Connecticut, I was under the tutelage of this prestigious gentleman. Then I drifted on down to Mississippi with my wife Mary, and we moved to Monroe County, just north of here in 1826. And later, we settled right here in Columbus, Mississippi. Now I came here to practice medicine. Real medicine. None of that witchcraft they try to pass as medicine. See, I follow in the steps of my old instructor. And with true deep thinkers like Dr. Smith and myself, it's none of that purging business. I mean, have you seen the man bled in the name of good science? It's a messy business. I'm talking blood, excrement, and vomit everywhere, all to cleanse the body of its impurities, to wash away the deeply rooted sin lurking within a man's soul that could cause any manner of illness. Now, doesn't that sound more than a little medieval, archaic even? I mean, you would be amazed at how many of these misled, uneducated simpletons enter my office, knife in hand, announcing they're ready to be cleansed. It's barbaric, and it will not be tolerated in this here sanctuary of science. Now, see here, I practice real medicine. Now, I'm not the only one who does this, though I am the brightest. And unfortunately, there just aren't too many of these deep thinkers left. I mean, ever since the death of Dr. Nathan Smith in 1829, I've been forced to take his place. I've been forced to be the beacon of true scientific thinking, and you may not know my name today, but just you wait. I mean, I've already made somewhat of a name for myself. I've accumulated a bit of wealth in my time, and have even acquired some worker bees to assist around the house. Oh, no, they aren't real bees, darling. They're slaves. And as I work day and night to further scientific understanding of the body and its preservation, my slaves keep the place tidy enough for me. And I appreciate the work that they do. Not that they have much of a choice, but maybe working under a man as accomplished and brilliant as I brings them some sort of satisfaction. I mean, the pursuit of effective medicine is a noble one. And ever since 1819, with the help of the Lattimore brothers, we men of medicine, including the standard physicians and surgeons, have been allowed to acquire medical licenses. Now, this was one step ushering in a new group of forward-thinking men willing to shed the shackles of former gruesome practices. This would allow us to transition into an era solely based off of facts and evidence. Unfortunately, I died quite prematurely in February of 1853 and wasn't able to see all of these magnificent changes brought into place. It's quite sad, really. But my time is still valuable, and you've wasted enough of it. Now, seeing as you have no aches or pains, I'd like to treat some real patients now.
As you walk, you will see beautiful magnolias throughout the cemetery, a fitting accompaniment to the silence and solitude of the deceased.
Added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1980, Friendship Cemetery is noteworthy as being the final resting place of 2 Mississippi governors, 1 U.S. senator, 5 Confederate generals, 2 Confederate congressmen, 2 U.S. congressmen, and 1 who served in both Congresses.
Veterans of every American war are buried here as well. Additionally, over 2,000 Confederate soldiers and 1 Confederate nurse are buried here.
I hope you all slept well, 'cause it's time to go. 44th Mississippi Infantry, attack! 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 The enemy could arrive at any moment and cross to this side of the Tennessee River. Your sense of urgency is completely absent. You people ain't the 44th Mississippi Infantry. This isn't the battlefield. This feels like Columbus. I must be back home, and I guess a second ago I was dreaming of my glorious battle days back at Shiloh Church. You see, I fought with the Confederacy for what I believed in, the institution of slavery and the right of slaveholders, such as myself, to benefit from the work of others, whom I legally held as property. In fact, I died fighting for that belief. But now that I'm back home, I'm beginning to rethink some things. Apologies I skipped my introduction. The name's Andrew King Blythe. Pleased to meet you all. I was born in 1818, and I came to Columbus in December 1846 to become a captain in the Mexican War, fighting alongside 1,000 other Mississippians. After the war, I was appointed U.S. District Attorney by President James K. Polk. Then, in 1850, I became U.S. Consul to Cuba, and that's not it. In 1856, I joined the Mississippi House of Representatives. Wouldn't you say that's pretty successful? In early 1852, I'm not sure if you can see her from here, but I married Elizabeth Butler. She was a shy little girl, real pretty though. Came with a bonus too. Her daddy Samuel Butler had extensive land holdings and a whopping 75 slaves. And that Abraham Lincoln, he wanted to take our slaves. Didn't he realize that would destroy our southern economy, ruin our way of life? Once he was elected in 1860, I decided to fight those boys up in Washington to make sure they didn't try to decide the affairs of us Southern men. My battalion's first battle was at Belmont, Missouri. General Grant's boats didn't stand a chance. By March 1862, I was promoted to colonel, and on April 6th, we ambushed Union soldiers at Shiloh Church near Pittsburgh Landing on the Tennessee River. We were trying to keep the Union forces away from the railroad crossings at Corinth, Mississippi. I took my men, and we charged against Colonel Ray's 3rd Brigade. I was on my horse, advancing, the roar of battle all around me, and then pain filled my chest. You know something, strangers? That pain hasn't left. A cannonball lodged here, but there's something else too. My mother used to tell me that pride is not the opposite of shame. Pride can be the source of shame. And I was a prideful man, you see. The name Andrew King Blythe struck fear into the hearts of many, and I was proud for that power. But now that I'm back home, I'm beginning to wonder. I certainly felt pride, so shouldn't I now feel some shame? Shame that I whipped disobedient slaves? Shame that I supported secession, supported the ensuing war? Shame that I benefited so much from slavery? A part of me wonders is that if I could go back, knowing what I know now, seeing you all out here in this crowd, in this cemetery, white, black, brown, young, old, and everywhere in between, should I have done things differently?
Following the Battle of Shiloh in the spring of 1862, 32 Union soldiers were also buried here. However, their bodies were relocated to the Corinth, Mississippi National Cemetery in October 1867.
The Battle of Shiloh was a tragic page in the history of this town and the cemetery.
Following the Battle of Shiloh, Columbus was a hospital town, and here 2,194 Confederate soldiers found their final resting place. Over 1,500 of these remain unknown, their stories forever lost.
Oh, I'm so terribly sorry. I hadn't heard you come in. Please make yourself comfortable. I'm so sorry for the mess. I wasn't expecting so many kind visitors tonight. My name? I'm Miss Florence Coy. May have seen me in the papers, yes? Although it may have been read as Miss Samuel. My mother always did say that a woman's true claim to fame was in fact what you married or what you put into the world, but y'all didn't come here to listen to me complain. My guess is that you hear about my son, Captain Samuel Coy, Jr. He was my firstborn, strong, daring boy. He got into a lot of trouble, but you know, boys. I had 4 other children after him, Gladys, Douglas, James, and Virginia, my baby girl. She was a good girl, bright eyes and a full life ahead of her, but like many things of beauty, she wasn't destined to be with us for very long. The Lord took her 12 days before her 2nd birthday. But who am I to question his divine choice? When Virginia died, his divine choice cut a light out of a mother's life. Sorry, I'm going on again. Sam. It seemed as if I had blinked, really, and he was off packing his bags to go fight in this great war. His father followed suit, of course, but eventually he came back home to work for the committee, and I just prayed. Every night I said, Lord, you have given this family prosperity and life, just as you have given us grief and death. You took my baby girl, you will not take my son too. Wouldn't you know, no matter what kind of trouble he seemed to get himself into, he always made it out alive. Now, I read papers full of stories about how my son, Captain Samuel Coy, Jr., ace of the 94th Squadron, was awarded the Oak Leaf, the Distinguished Service Cross, the Croix de Guerre by the French government for exceptional prowess in the air. My son went in solo, soaring through the clouds to bring down the enemy planes while chasing off the other 6 cowards. Now, I'll tell you, I also read in these papers that he painted his plane with polka dots, like some sort of circus in the air, and I thought for sure, this is going to get him killed. But it didn't. The Lord had heard me. Now, while Sam was off, doing his part, fighting in the war, I promised myself to do mine. I stayed at home, played the good wife, cooked, cleaned, to take care of the children, left my husband to his work, and I mean, just like Mama said, I have a successful family, so that makes me a successful lady, doesn't it?
The deaths of war are tragic, affecting far more than just the lives of the soldiers. However, out of the tragedy of 1862 came an act of renewal and reconciliation in 1866.
In April of that year, 4 Columbus women decided to meet in the parlor of 12 Gables and decided to decorate the graves of both Union and Confederate dead with spring flowers.
They led a parade of ladies to this cemetery on April 25, 1866. Their impartiality was reported and celebrated in New York newspapers. Their impartiality was immortalized in the poem The Blue and the Gray, first published in Atlantic Monthly in September of 1867.
Well, ladies, that was the last bouquet, and I have to say, I'm getting a little old for this. I mean, it has been 152 years since the first time we all did this together.
Jay, darling, hush your clucking spring chicken. You look just as good the first day we came to honor these fine men. For heaven's sakes, we're here because it's Decoration Day.
Yes, Mrs. Kate, and I'll never forget the first day we all came together. April 25th, 1866. Leaves a warm feeling in my heart every time. But I believe it's called Memorial Day now. Isn't it, Maddie?
Yes, Memorial Day, the day we remember those who sacrificed their lives in honor of what they believed in. But we had to look past our own pain and suffering to acknowledge that it wasn't only our loved ones who served and died, but the Union soldiers too.
Together, us 4 were the first to honor both Yankee and Confederate soldiers by laying flowers on their graves regardless of what side they fought on. Both sides were fighting for what they believed in, and it's only just that these courageous soldiers get the respect that they deserve.
I lost my dear husband in the Battle of Shiloh, but instead of being angry at the Yankees for his death, I could have realized that those Yankee soldiers had wives and children, just like our own soldiers did. Though that's not to say his death doesn't still affect me to this day.
Oh, Augusta, the loss of our loved ones will always be painful. But without it, Decoration Day might never have began. And these soldiers might not have gotten the recognition that they deserve.
Goodness. I still remember my husband kissing me goodbye for the war, only for death to kiss him hello from the raging battles.
Sometimes I wonder. I'm scared that our brothers, husbands, and sons will soon become distant ghosts for generations to come. Do people today understand the choking pain that struck us like lightning when we realized that the letter sent to us from the battlefront was not written by our loved ones, but rather about them? Oh, Augusta, Jane, Maddie, do you think they remember us? Do y'all remember my dear boys?
Kate, dear, worry not. These people here, they breathe the same air and their blood runs red, the same as our loved ones did those many years ago. Fear not, Kate, because through us, these soldiers live on.
But just as we don't want these people to forget about those we lost, we must also remember those who made the effort to honor us for as well.
Like our dear Mr. Francis Fitch, who wrote that captivating poem, The Blue and the Gray. Sadly, but not with upbraiding, the generous deed was done. In the storm of the years that are fading, no braver battle was won.
Under the sod and the dew, awaiting the judgment day. Under the blossoms, the blue. Under the garlands, the gray.
No more shall the war cry sever, or the winding rivers be red. They banish our anger forever when they laurel the graves of our dead.
Under the sod and the dew, awaiting the judgment day. Love and tears for the blue, tears and love for the gray.
Well, ladies, that was the last bouquet, and I have to say, I'm getting a little old for this. I mean, it has been 152 years since the first time we did this. Oh, hush your clucking, spring chicken. You look just as good as you did the first day we came out to honor these fine young men. For heaven's sakes, we're here because it's Decoration Day.
Yes, Mrs. Kate, and I'll never forget the first day we all came together. Honoring the fallen soldiers of that wretched Civil War helped me find closure. April 25th, 1866. There's a warm feeling in my heart every time. But I believe it's called Memorial Day now, isn't it, Maddie?
Yes, Memorial Day, the day we remember those who sacrificed their lives in honor of what they believed in. But we had to look past our own pain to acknowledge that it wasn't only our loved ones who served and died, but the Union soldiers too.
Together, us four were the first to lay flowers on both Yankee and Confederate soldiers' graves, regardless of what side they fought on. Both sides were fighting for what they believed in, and it's only just that they get the respect that they deserve.
I lost my dear husband in the Battle of Shiloh. But instead of being angry at the Yankees for his death, I could have realized that those Yankee soldiers had wives and children, just like our own soldiers did. Though that's not to say his death doesn't still affect me to this day.
Oh, Augusta, the loss of our loved ones will always be painful. But without it, Decoration Day might never have began. It was our mutual loss and urge to commemorate the fallen that brought us all closer together.
Goodness, I still remember kissing my husband goodbye for the war, only for him to kiss death hello during the raging battles. Sometimes I wonder.
I'm afraid that our husbands, brothers, and sons will soon become distant ghosts to generations to come. Do the people today understand the choking pain that struck us like lightning when we realized that the letters sent to us from the battlefront weren't written by our husbands, but rather
about them. Oh, Augusta, Jane, Maddie, do you think they remember us? Do y'all remember my dear boys?
Kate, dear, worry not. These people here, they breathe the same air and their blood runs red, the same as our loved ones did those many years ago. Fear not, Kate. Through us, these soldiers will live on.
But just as we don't want these people here to forget about those we lost, we must also remember those who made the effort to honor us for as well. Like the dear Mr. Francis Finch, who wrote that captivating poem, The Blue and the Gray. Sadly, but not with upbraiding, the generous deed was done. In the storm of the years that are fading, no braver battle was won.
Under the sod and the dew, awaiting the judgment day. Under the blossoms, the blue. Under the garlands, the gray.
No more shall the war cry sever, or the winding rivers be red. They banish our anger forever when they laurel the graves of our dead.
Under the sod and the dew, awaiting the judgment day. Love and tears for the blue, tears and love for the gray.
As you tread this hallowed ground this evening, do not forget that you, born in an earlier time, may have shared the experiences of those you meet.
Tonight you honor their memories by listening to their stories, which reveal the history of this gracious city on the banks of the Tombigbee, which we know as Columbus.
S-U-F-F-R-I-D-G-E? Suffered? I think that's how I spell. Here you go, Miss Susan.
S-U-F-F-R-A-G-E. Simon, we can't afford you making such elementary mistakes like misspelling words.
I'm sorry.
Maybe if he were a woman, he would pay closer attention to detail. Good evening. My name is Susan Casement Mayer, and I'm the owner and editress of this newspaper. Yes, young man, you did hear me correctly. I'm the owner and editress of the finest newspaper here in Columbus. You'll have to excuse my impatience. I'm sure you can understand my reaction to incompetence among my employees. I've had to work so hard to get to where I am today. See, I was born in Melbourne, Australia in 1837, and I grew up there with my parents. I had planned to stay there my whole life, but then I met Samuel Mayer. Do you believe in love at first sight? Well, I do. Samuel swept me right off my feet the moment I met him. However, he was only visiting Australia for a couple of months from his home. He asked me to move halfway across the world, and obviously my answer was yes. We moved to Columbus and were married a few weeks after our arrival in the spring of 1864, and our son Percy was born about 6 years after our marriage. Our times together as a family were wonderful until Samuel passed away in 1874. I was heartbroken. After months of grieving, though, I decided that I had to be strong for Percy. He was only 4 when Samuel died, and I had to help him grow up. In 1881, I heard the Columbus commercial was for sale, so I went out on a limb and decided to buy it. I even told a couple of my friends because I was so excited about buying the business, but they said that it wasn't a good idea for me to try and run a newspaper. They said things like, women do the chores, and jobs like those are for men, and women take care of the children, not businesses. I took their opinions with a grain of salt. I love to write, and I knew I could manage the newspaper well. Percy was one of my biggest supporters. When I told him about me buying the business, he was so excited for me. He even helped me throughout the office until he was old enough to write for the paper himself. We succeeded in continuing the publication of the weekly paper. In 1906, after my death, Percy took charge of the paper. He was in charge until he sold it to Bernie Imes, who combined our paper with another local paper, the Columbus Dispatch, together to form the Columbus Commercial Dispatch in 1922. Well, it was nice talking to you. I'm afraid I have editing to do. Maybe if more women weren't afraid to get real jobs, I could get some quality help around here.
I said I was sorry. What more do you want from me?
To my left, you will notice the most recognizable grave marker in Friendship Cemetery, the Angel of Grief, also known as the Weeping Angel, which drapes the tombstone of Reverend Thomas Teasdale.
Reverend Teasdale was the pastor at the First Baptist Church in Columbus before the Civil War. He was so beloved by his flock that when he died, the congregation ordered the Angel of Grief, signifying the depth of their loss by saying, "When he died, even the angels cried."
What are you doing here? You do know this is the cemetery, right? I apologize. My name is Josiah G. Parsons, but I just prefer J.G. Parsons, and it is nice to meet you all. You see, I'm not actually from around here. I was born out in Alabama in 1841, and both of my parents loved to move around, so naturally, when I learned about my own father's death when I was 19, I decided to do the same. I moved all around the area. I decided to go fight in the Civil War when I was 21. After that, I came back, met my wife Harriet, and we fell in love. We eventually got married, settled down here in Columbus, and even had 5 kids. What a challenge. You know, sometimes to get them to behave, I'd tell them a story about a big bad boogeyman that would come and grab them whenever they misbehaved. I apologize for the tangent. Where was I? Yes, after the war. You see, it hasn't always been so good. All I ever wanted to do was keep my family happy, but I wasn't able to keep a steady job. I mean, I tried. I promise. I even went to the extent of becoming a furniture store manager or a night watchman, but no place would keep me on. They always called me paranoid and hostile, and I just don't understand. I mean, do I seem paranoid and hostile? Well, my wife never had any problems in our community. One time, a newspaper even published an article about how big and beautiful her tomatoes were. My wife, I know I loved her, and I know she loved me, but she started telling me I wasn't acting like the man she married anymore. She too was calling me paranoid and hostile, and I just don't get it. I mean, is there something I'm missing? I mean, there has to be, right? Well, by then, I had been having the dreams. Nightmares, really, about the war. The flashbacks, visions, whatever you want to call them. I was seeing them. I mean, I was seeing my friends die. I mean, you see that grave right there? That's one of them. That's O'Neill. And as a matter of fact, you look just like him. I was reliving every time I'd shot another man. Every memory I have of that war comes back to haunt me. I've seen waves and waves of men gunned down. I've seen battlefields filled with bodies to the point that you cannot see the ground. I've had to kill people, but that's okay, right? That's okay. I mean, from what our own Southern leaders told us, those men, they wanted to take our land from us. And our own commanding officers told us that they wanted to change the way that we lived, those Yankees, and that's not acceptable, right? I mean, I'm not going to let some jerk tell me how I can and can't live my life. I mean, that's why I fought so hard. That's why I got promoted from a private to a second lieutenant. And that's why I made sure my infantry never quit until we were tearing apart our own battle flags at the Appomattox Courthouse. Paranoid and hostile? You've got to be joking. Well, there are times I do feel bad for what I've done. Those men thought they were the good guys as much as we thought we were, and what did they get for it? They died. That's how it went, and that's something I can't undo, and honestly, I feel like a monster. Because I can't describe the horror I feel in holding my children with the same hands that have held a rifle and killed men. And it seems the more I tell my kids that story, the more I feel like the monster I had told them to be afraid of. But look at me. Look at me. Look at me! There's no way I could be dangerous, right? Me? Paranoid and hostile? There's just no way.
Graves at the cemetery suggest important events that have shaped our state and nation.
This is the gravesite of Annie Coleman Payton. Mrs. Payton was one of the two Mississippi women who persuaded the Mississippi legislature to fund the Mississippi Industrial Institute and College, now called the Mississippi University for Women in Columbus.
The Mississippi Industrial Institute and College became the first publicly funded college for women in the United States in 1884.
Ms. Payton taught history at IINC until her death in 1898, and all 4 of her daughters graduated from the college that their mother helped establish.
Ms. Payton would be proud to know that nearly 250,000 students have earned a certification or degree at the university.
Welcome to my 1923 campaign speech. My name is Henry Louis Whitfield, and I hope that you'll find me worthy of becoming the next governor of this great state of Mississippi. I know that my educational background might seem a tad unconventional to some of you, but let me reassure you, the future of Mississippi will be wholly and solely determined by our ability to educate our people, and this future will be well placed in my guiding hands. Now, some people have called my opponent Theodore Bilbo's background into question. That his stubborn, thick-headed nature suggesting mule somewhere his lineage? I don't know about that, but he does look a little long in the face, don't you think? Anyways, I was born to a saint of a woman in rural Rankin County in 1868. In order to begin my study of law, I began teaching at the age of only 16. Like so many of you, my family was of modest means. The time that I spent teaching delayed my graduation several years. But after 10 years of hard work, I qualified to begin practicing law. This ability to work hard towards our goals is what we need in this great state. Soon, I was appointed to become the State Superintendent of Education. This was my first opportunity dealing with our state government, and it opened up my eyes to many of the problems that plague our great state. I would have stayed in this position many years if I was not asked to become the president of the Industrial Institute and College, or, as it is now known, the Mississippi State College for Women. While there, the quality of both my students' health and education improved. Ironically, though, I was asked to leave the college because I refused to use my position politically. But now I'm here running for governor. So, what makes me better than my opponent, Theodore Bilbo? Mr. Bilbo certainly is a passionate orator and emotional speaker. If only Mr. Bilbo's intelligence matched the volume of his voice and his enthusiasm for speech making. This election gives Mississippi women their first opportunity to vote for governor. My years at MSCW have taught me many things about the women who are joining the men at the polls. They work hard and are just as smart as the men. In fact, groups of women all across the state have formed clubs and organizations in order to campaign for me. Earlier this year, Mr. Bilbo insulted and dismissed my role as the president of MSCW. He seemed to believe that I was both worthless at leading an institution such as the college, and that women were not worthy of an education nor capable of participating in politics. I could spend all day disproving my opponent's simplistic and erroneous charges and beliefs, but my saint of mother taught me that there was no sense, and if a man has no more insight than the stump from which he delivers his campaign speeches from. Mr. Bilbo does not respect our mothers, our wives, our sisters, or our daughters. This inability to recognize the talent of this half of the population is troubling, and no good change will come from a man who fails to recognize how his actions insult and degrade half the population of this great state. So, in conclusion, on August 28th, 1923, come out and vote for Henry Louis Whitfield for governor. Thank you.
Since 1991, history students at the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science have presented Tales from the Crypt.
Throughout the year, each of the students have done their own research, and the performances you see today are the results of this research.
Each year the tour is new and original. It has earned awards of commendation from the Mississippi Heritage of Trust and the Mississippi Historical Society.
Seams are essential. They join things together to make a whole. They mark the lines of a union. Seams hold things together. I'd like to think I'm pretty good at making seams. Being a tailor for the better part of my life, I would hope I am at least. My name's Patsy O'Malley, and I work at A. Lindstrom & Company, the finest tailor in Columbus, Mississippi. I was born in Ireland, but I moved all the way to Columbus seeking opportunity. I'm definitely quick behind the needle. I mean, I could throw a fine pair of trousers together faster than most people could call me a bog trotter. And they seem to do that quite a lot these days. They being the road workers. I don't think I've had a railman come through here once.
regardless of his land origin, and not call me slick for getting such a good paying job and still being above ground with all my fingers. Got the good end of a bad stick, I assume. Most people with the slightest tint of red in their hair or an Irish brogue are forbidden to many a rail yard, coal mine, or other place of serial employment. But luckily, there's still some decent people in this world. People that look at us just like you look at any other industrious member of society. Like my boss, Carl Tresh. He even pays our clerk Mercedna enough to get by. Other people just have this bias against the Irish. But getting into the pants here, you like a man of discerning taste. Do you see a difference in these two seams? Or these two pair of pants at all? No? Well, are you sure? Because this one here was sewed by one of the evil Irishmen who were to steal our jobs, implement mass production, and ruin the U.S. economy. Well, listen here, so my good friend Z.B. Goolsby, who's just about as American as you can get without putting feathers in your hair. It's also funny you mentioned there's no difference in these two pants at all, because this one here that says O'Malley is marked at $1.25. Well, this one here that says Goolsby is marked at $2, based only on the fact that he ain't Irish. I walk down the same street as Mr. Goolsby every day. I know his wife, and he knows mine. We both have daughters. We honestly live quite similar lives. But even though I've worked at Lindstrom a good 2 more years than him, even though I risked my life fighting for the Confederacy, my product's still seen as inferior. Because my father wasn't born in Columbus, but yet in Galway. And this wouldn't be a problem if we could all just take a second to realize we can't all be the same. But everybody's their own stitch. It takes a lot of stitches to make a seam.
In 2005, Tales from the Crypt was awarded the Governor's Awards for Excellence in the Arts and named one of 15 national finalists for the History Channel Save Our History Classroom Award.
Additionally, over the past 6 years, Tales has raised over $30,000 for charitable causes across our state and nation.
Thank you for participating in the 20th annual Tales from the Crypt. The students of the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science hope you've enjoyed the evening.
Tales from the Crypt has inspired other presentations like this one in Natchez, Mississippi, Selma, Alabama, Goshen, Mississippi, and several other southern cities, most recently in Indianapolis, Indiana.
We hope tonight's performance has encouraged a greater appreciation for the lives who have gone before each of us and built the community of Columbus, Mississippi.